Welcome to Livorno. Today we chose the excursion to Pisa and Florence. The day started with arriving in the Livorno port. You passed through some interesting breakwaters with lighthouses and statues, and watching the pilots' boats was fascinating as they helped us into port. This is a 10.5-hour excursion, which starts with a 1-hour bus ride from the port to Pisa. Along the way, you get fascinating views. Right in port is the old fort, which I wish we could have had time to see. You then pass the statue of the Monument to the Four Moors. It is a 1626 statue that commemorates the victories of Tuscany over the Ottomans. After about an hour's drive in the bus, you recognize that you are in Pisa by crossing the Arno River. You then get your first glimpse of the Miracle Square with the cathedral and the Leaning Tower of Pisa in the distance. The buses must park quite a ways from Miracle Square and the Leaning Tower. Both the ship port talk and tour guide warned us about pickpockets, especially here. Tourists get so wrapped up in the sights, they lose focus on their valuables. We are entering the gauntlet of street vendors, a required trial before we enter the square. Finally, we are in Miracle Square. Oh no, I can't find my phone. I've already been pickpocketed. Wait, the phone is in a different pocket. Never mind. All the warnings made me skittish. Calming down, we get a view of the baptistry, cathedral, and Leaning Tower. We first visited the baptistry, but could not go in since Viking did not buy tickets for that privilege. Peering in, the building looks impressive. Moving on, we examined the cathedral. Construction began in 1064. We walked all around the building and were impressed with its size and elaborate construction. At last we made it to the Campanile, or bell tower, famously known as the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Construction began in 1173 AD, and it started leaning when the building had reached the third floor. They changed the design to make one side taller than the other to try to stabilize the lean. When completed, it leaned 1 degree. By 1990, the lean had increased to 5.5 degrees. Modern engineers worked hard, and now the lean has been reduced to 4 degrees. Unfortunately, Viking did not arrange for a ticket to climb the tower, so we just walked around it. Time to return to the bus and drive to Florence. We did a fair bit of walking Florence's narrow streets and plazas. The plazas were fantastic places to watch people, see the many statues, and examine the historic buildings. Our first plaza is the Most Holy Annunciation Square, with statues from the 1600s. This is the Hospital of the Innocents building, Europe's oldest foundling home, built in 1419. We continue walking and we can see St. Mary of the Flower Cathedral, otherwise known as Florence's Cathedral, growing on the skyline as we approach. We were able to walk all around this magnificent building. The exterior is green, pink, and white marble, which is very stunning. Building was commenced in 1296 AD, and it was completed in 1436 AD. The dome is a major architectural accomplishment. It is the first octagonal dome in history to be built without a temporary wooden supporting frame, and it remains the largest masonry dome to be built. Unfortunately, Viking had not arranged tickets for us to go inside, so we could just see the exterior. Not arranging for tickets is not so much the cost, but these tickets take time to get, and it would have been so much nicer if Viking would have arranged it. The baptistry stands in front of the cathedral and is known for the brass doors with the relief sculptures. After a prepared sit-down lunch, we continued to explore. The rest of the architecture around the plaza is very interesting. A tradition dating to 1560 AD, aristocrats could sell wine from their houses, so they created a wine window where servants could sell wine or food. This was very useful during the bubonic plague and during COVID. Continuing the walk, you pass the Palace of Ramaz di Montalvo, claiming to be the home of the oldest graffiti. You see lots of scooters and bikes. You can get a license to ride a small scooter at age 14 years old. You can take a passenger at 16. Further down the street, you get to see a shrine right on the quarter. Walking a little further, we reach Piazza Santa Croce. You transition from the narrow streets and burst upon the wide open plaza. So much nicer than a covered mall. People walking in all directions, shops of all kinds around the plaza. The guide directed us to a leather shop, which enticed me to buy a little purse for the wife. But I was also very interested in the cathedral at the end of the plaza. It was built in 1442. It is the largest Franciscan church in the world. And I love the massive doors. We gathered our purchases and headed off to the magnificent Piazza del Signoria. This plaza is loaded with famous statues, from the equestrian monument of Cosimo, Neptune's fountain, to Hercules and Caucasus. At the far end of the plaza is Loggia di Lanci, essentially an open-air art gallery. It was built around 1380 AD to hold public ceremonies. It slowly became a place for the Medici family to display its fabulous statue collection. It currently shows Roman and Italian statues, including Perseus with the head of Medusa, Ajax bearing corpse of Achilles, Medici lions, Roman statues against the wall, and Hercules and Nexus. In this square, many of the statues are copies, with the real ones safely in museums. Decades of weathering the Italian seasons can damage the marble. Also, the possibility of vandalism, although being in a museum may not be as safe as one hopes. The tour guide recounted how the David statue is why hammers are not allowed in Italian museums. A man entered the museum with a hammer, broke off the toe of David, and stole the toe. Hammers are no longer allowed. Time to find a narrow alley and walk to the Ponte Vecchio. I was looking forward to seeing this unusual bridge. It definitely had the shops, and you could not tell that you were on a bridge with shops on both sides. There is a clearing at the center of the bridge where you have a good look at the Arno River. It was fun watching the double scull rowers quickly pass under the bridge. You can also see the plaque remembering the 1333 AD catastrophic floods. We followed the Vasari corridor until we reached the Pitti Palace. Impressive from the outside, once again, no entry. We gather at the next plaza, Piazza Santo Spirito, to wait for the rest of the group to catch up. We peeked inside the basilica, which dominated the square, and saw the rich furnishings. But we also people-watched around the square. Once we were all gathered, we headed off to our last plaza, Piazza del Carmine. This plaza did not have as many people or shops, but it did have a restored Baroque church from 1268 AD, the Chelsea di Santa Maria del Carmine. We did not stop and headed out to reach the bus. We saw more outstanding doors and moody streets as our last view of Florence. It took us about an hour and a half to return to the ship. We are staying the night in port since tomorrow is our excursion to Tuscany.